guest today, Cindy Arevalo, was 14 years old when she met her abuser, a teacher at her school. In her book, Living in Silence, Cindy invites us to walk alongside her as she shares how the teacher groomed, manipulated, gaslit, and subjected her to years of fear, abuse, and rape. Today, she's with us to share her courageous story. She has a powerful message for parents, teachers, and administrators about protecting and educating the children in your care. Cindy hopes, too, that if anyone watching today is still living in silence over past abuse, that her story will help you find courage to speak up and get free. Cindy, welcome to Hope Today.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, it is our pleasure. Well, if we can, let's begin by having you set up your story. Share with us what life looked like for you as a 14-year-old and how the abuser came into your life.
When I was 14 at the time, I was somebody who was very sheltered, very insecure. I didn't have a good communication with my parents at the time. I wasn't close to them or to my older sister either. And I felt very sheltered to the point where I felt that I couldn't wear spaghetti strap shirts because if I did, I was naked. It was something that I always felt uncomfortable when it came to my body personally. I never felt beautiful. I always felt that I was missing something. And I always felt far away from the curveball with guys at the time. I thought, well, nobody's going to like me. I have a broken nose. I have crooked teeth. I'm flat chested. I always felt so many insecurities. And when I met my abuser at 14, he was the opposite of all my insecurities. He used to tell me how pretty I was, how mature I was, how beautiful I was, how he saw me as a more mature person for my age and somebody that was just beautiful inside and out. And that blew my mind. I thought, oh my gosh, somebody notices me, somebody sees me. And I felt seen and heard for the first time, because if I can give him anything, was that he was a very good listener. I thought at the time he was really interested in learning about me, when in reality, he was learning more about me to get in closer to me, to know my surroundings, to know who I was close to, who I wasn't close to, who was in my life, who was I involved with, who was involved in my life, so that way he can have a closer insight, as in for him to move in closer to start the abuse.
And so share with us an example, like when he started to brush up against you or start touching you in ways that were inappropriate, and there was sort of some like red flags that you felt inside, but then somehow he was able to make you think like it was just normal, and so this continued. Help us understand a little bit of that.
So there was times where he used to brush up on me on campus. He would make it sound that it was something good, that it meant that there was nothing wrong with it, that it was because he was attracted to me, and that was a way of him showing that he liked me. And at 14, there's a lot that I still didn't know. And he had to pretty much, you could say, teach me what a lot of terminology meant and what a lot of expression meant.
Yeah. And so this over time, he continued to groom you. He continued to sort of just make everything seem normal. And then how was he ultimately able to manipulate your mind to get you into a place where horrifically he ended up raping you?
So as the years went by, he always had me question myself. So he would always say, you know what? You don't know what you're thinking. You don't know what you're saying. I know what's best for you. You're still a child. You don't know what maturity is like yet. I know what things can happen and what cannot, just because I have experience and I'm older. So let me think for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and so this continued on, and what are you able to share? What's your comfort level in sharing just the experience of the rape, and then the steps that you took after that moving forward?
Everything was honestly horrific. It was a nightmare. I can say it was hell at the time. But what ended up to my healing was taking therapy, coming forward, and more than anything, just surrendering everything to Jesus Christ. Because for so many years, I felt empty. I felt that I kept just going back to my trauma. I felt that I couldn't move forward no matter how much therapy I took, no matter what else I sought outside in the world. It was all just temporary peace for me. But finding Jesus and putting it at his feet and laying it at him, that's what set me free.
Wow. And so it's so interesting because your family didn't go to church, right?
My mom did.
Okay.
So I was raised in a Catholic church environment when I was younger, and then my mom started going to a Christian church when I was 11.
Okay, and so is that where you were first introduced to having a personal relationship with Jesus?
Not yet.
Okay, so that's coming a little bit later. Before we get more into that, tell us what was happening inside that made you feel like this was all your fault, like his abuse, the terrible things that he did was your fault?
He used to tell me that he was such a great person, that I was hurting him, that I didn't know what I wanted in my life, that how could I do that to him? But either way, he loved me, that he would still be there for me, regardless of how I treated him, because I wasn't able to see it yet.
Yeah. And then you met a young man named Juan when you were in high school. So this began in middle school, continued into high school, and then you met Juan. Tell us a little bit about him.
So I met my husband now, who was then my boyfriend at the time, in high school. I was in 10th grade. He was in 11th grade at the time. And I could say that I met him where we call it the punker side at the time at the school. We had 2 cafeterias. And I used to go to the punker side just because it was less crowded than the preppy side, and you could get your lunch and actually have a conversation without it being so loud. And when I first saw him, I thought he was a little bit off because he had staring issues at the time. He finally gained the courage to talk to me, and I haven't looked back since. He's always made me laugh. He's so funny. He is outgoing. He has a bubbly personality. He's a professional friend maker, you could say.
That's awesome. And so you started this romantic relationship with Juan then in high school, and yet the abuse was still going on, and you felt like you had to keep it from Juan. Share with us the dynamic of that, the struggle, why you felt it had to be kept a secret.
Yeah, so I did tell my abuser about Juan, and he refused to let me go. If anything, he got a closer grip on me and said that I didn't know what I wanted, that this boy was going to break my heart, and that if anything, I was hurting him even more for thinking of having a relationship with this boy. So I thought, well, I can keep it a secret from Juan because I don't want him to know that this man is in my life. And I don't want him to think that I'm not interested in him because of this man. So what this man started doing was he started blackmailing me, telling me that if I didn't break up with him, that he was going to tell him about us, and that he was going to make sure that Juan never looked at me ever again, that he would leave me. And that was something that I could not risk to lose.
Yeah, there was just so much fear that he instilled in you that kept you trapped. So how did you finally get free of Kip Arnold?